And hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the AFI Breakdown, which is the unofficial title I never ran by Noah. And today we are going to be talking about arguably the greatest blockbuster of all time, Star Wars, directed by George Lucas, and the maybe most influential film in terms of pop culture we've talked about here on the channel. We are also joined by special guest Stephen Chen, a stand-up comedian, boyfriend to my sister, and all-around good man. How's it going, Stephen?
Wonderful. I'm not sure I'm recording audio. That's why my camera was switching around a lot.
All right, well, you figure that out. I'll just go ahead and say, how's it going, Noah? And we'll move on from there.
Well, it was going pretty well until you threw that totally terrible title at me for the channel, which I do not approve of whatsoever. So you're going to have to scrap that altogether and come up with something
You don't
new.
like the AFI Breakdown as a series name?
No, I'm kidding. That's a perfect name. I just wanted to give you shit for something completely unnecessary.
Well, we could call it like the AFI hashtag challenge YOLO TikTok trend.
Can we call it green eggs and spam?
Oh.
For no reason whatsoever. Just...
I think
Is that going to get
likes
censored?
No,
Steven likes it?
Yeah, I like that.
I like green eggs and spam.
No,
Steven
I don't
likes
wanna-
it. How about we let the audience decide?
Okay.
Let us know in the comments down below. Do you like
Oh,
the
God.
AFI breakdown or green eggs and spam? Well, I'm going to pass the first question on to you then. Obviously this is not the first time you've watched Star Wars, correct?
Correct.
This first film's really great for its time. I mean, it has probably to this day the most impressive usage of practical effects for this type of movie. The sound design as well is just ILM flexing all over everybody with some of them. I'd say the most iconic series of sounds of cinema.
Yeah.
Lightsabers trimming on, TIE fighters, X-Wings, torpedoes going off.
Wookiees.
Just an incredible catalog to
Yeah.
the point where I'm not that big a Star Wars fan. I have a TIE fighter tattooed on my leg because I like the sound. That is the actual reason. And that's kind of what stood out to me most this time, was just how impressive of a technical achievement it is and how okay it is in almost every other category.
Yeah, I want to let Steven jump in here too. I think you're wading into dangerous territory, but I do agree, and there's it does a lot of things well, and George Lucas is a good director. I think he really proved himself with American Graffiti, which came out a few years before this. But yeah, he needed a lot of help from all these other sources to make it into something that was that made even a little bit of sense. Star Wars seems to be the culmination of a lot of different pieces coming together to help George Lucas, who definitely had a solid idea, but was just kind of had no way of making it reasonable. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think as Daniel was saying with the sound design, sound design and music is without that, this movie would have been a flop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the first second, right, with the trumpets blaring and Star Wars coming to the screen, it's okay, yeah, I'm watching a classic film.
Yeah. Even the sound effects playing in the through VHS through my computer speakers, I was yeah, these sound effects still it's not enhanced for surround sound or anything. I'm this sounds awesome, even from the VHS version. I was this is fucking tight.
Yeah. George Lucas is inspired by a lot of classic films. You already mentioned Flash Gordon. That was basically his inspiration, right? He was I want to do my own version of Flash Gordon, which was a 30s TV serial. But he was also I think you're so right. I think it's a really strong choice to start basically in the middle of the story with the rebels escaping the Empire. And that is basically directly taken from one of his other influences, who is... the director's name is Kurosawa, but I can never remember his first name. But he did 40 Ronin and Seven Samurai and all those things. And one of the trademarks of his directing was, putting you from the jump into the center of the story. So you don't have basically trusting the audience that if you're patient and if you watch, you'll figure out the story.
I believe that technique is called in media res. Is the starting in the middle or in the action.
By the way, we're all frauds here. None of us are actually film students. So for me, one of the things that I think has allowed Star Wars to stand the test of time so well is it again has some of the performances are accidentally excellent. Like, Harrison Ford notoriously does not give a shit about Star Wars. He has made that abundantly clear. He returns because money is great. And that is, I mean, he has this lackadaisical attitude that I think he is trying. He is giving it what he can for this, what he considered, no one knew what Star Wars was going to be, just some space pulp thing he's in. But that comes across so great. Like, his kind of like, I'm Han Solo. You're like, fucking yeah, that guy's awesome. I love that guy.
But Carrie Fisher like slips in and out of a British accent throughout the film.
The more you tighten your grip, Tarkin, the more star systems will slip through your fingers.
Alderaan is peace, but we have no weapons. You can't possibly...
There is some, and I want to say this kind of begrudgingly, some enhancements from like the later editions that I actually think are kind of cool. Some of the digital extensions to make the rooms bigger and add more weight to the Empire, I'm actually like, cool. Because I have seen some side-by-side comparisons, and like there's some things where it's like, the Emperor comes down and it's like 4 dudes. And you're like, really? And then like they expanded it out to be like an army of people greeting him. I'm like, all right, that makes more sense. He's the Emperor. It's feeling a little better. So I don't agree with the entire bashing of the enhancements, especially because there's issues with the lightsabers that they fixed quite a bit. And so, okay, we have to set up the story of Star Wars, I guess. Like some people don't know it. But there is a farmer on a desert planet named Luke Skywalker, and he comes across some droids who were launched from that ship we mentioned as they were running from the Empire. Turns out they have all kinds of dirty secrets. Some bad, naughty stuff that I guess canonically now people died for. And
how has Obi-Wan stayed in hiding for like 40 or 50 years? Like, speaking of half-assing things, he didn't even change the syllable. Like, Obi still sounds like Ben. Like
old Ben Kenobi. Obi.
Ben Kenobi.
I'm sure there's some excuse on Wikipedia, which is a real thing. That's like all the information of Star Wars.
Don't you bash Wikipedia. It is.
I'm going to bash Wikipedia all I want. I'm sure there's some excuse like, oh, there's trillions of people in this universe. Lord knows Vader wouldn't have checked where all the sand is. I don't know.
The place where he grew up?
Well, this movie also has 2 of my favorite campy line deliveries of all time, which, of course, one is, but I wanted to go to the Tashi station to get power converters.
Take these 2 over to the garage, will you? I want them cleaned up for dinner.
But I was going into Tashi Station to pick up some power converters.
And the other's a little more subtle, but okay, so we'll get to it. I'll talk about it at the end. Don't let me forget. But we'll move through the story a little bit. So one of the droids runs away and finds Obi-Wan. Anakin goes there, and Obi-Wan has this actually really phenomenally delivered exposition scene about the Clone Wars and, himself and Anakin and, Darth Vader. And it's absolutely brilliantly delivered because it's Sir Alec Guinness, and that guy is just awesome. But Luke is like, oh no, then my family's in trouble, and he comes on back home, and apparently they decided to cook his fucking family because they are just these charred little things on the ground, and Anakin's upset about it for about 8 seconds.
Yeah, that is bizarre. Also, but it's also so weird. It's like you meet this guy who you've met before, because at least his name, and he knows he's been watching you. And then instantly it's just like telling you these old stories and like, why haven't you ever told me this before? And also like instantly, here is the coolest weapon ever. And he's not even that psyched about a lightsaber. Like he's just like, and he almost like cuts his own arm off. Like he's just like.
Can you imagine if he opened the lightsaber in the wrong direction? Like the guy was like, there's no expedition. There's no directions for this, like, this tool, this weapon. And he just like opens it, and it could have very easily clicked open in the wrong direction, and that's just the end of the story. Like,
this is the weapon of a Jedi Knight, not as clumsy or random as a blaster.
Oh shit.
So getting right back into it, then we see Luke decides to go with Obi-Wan to a cantina in maybe the most iconic scene of this movie. And then they go through essentially a Halloween store of costumes that you see like Satan and a werewolf and a bunch of racism. It's very strange. Someone just starts threatening Luke, and then a hand gets cut off of the lightsaber just because Obi-Wan needed to show that he's an old man, but he's willing to cut a bitch. And then we meet Han Solo, who uses a measurement of distance as if it was a measurement of time.
You've never heard of the Millennium Falcon?
Should I have?
It's a ship that made the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs.
Okay, I feel like that's one that they have reasonably retconned and talked about.
Bullshit.
Like so many. Okay, whatever. It does seem like kind of a gaffe on the writing, on like the part of the writers, but whatever.
Okay,
I was gonna say
no. Fuck you.
No.
I will agree. I will agree.
No. Fuck you.
I will agree that it has been retconned reasonably, but when they first wrote this scene, they just fucked up.
It's so confidently like, oh, we're talking about time and not distance.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna like segue just for a brief second, but sometimes when you watch movies that take place in like a sci-fi world or, you know, a futuristic setting, even though this is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, they can feel like sterile and like everyone's wearing the same futuristic, perfectly crisp and clean. Like all of the rooms are like beautiful and neat, and all of the people are beautiful and neat. And so there is something really pleasant about seeing characters who have dirt on their clothes, who are wearing all different things, and all of the species and cultures that are represented in the Cantina are different and look unique. Yeah. Even if you have just a werewolf in there for like, I don't know what planet there's just a species of like humanoid wolf creatures on, but apparently there is one.
So Steven, how do you feel about Noah being pro space poverty?
I think it's good because it would be there, you know? We're not getting to space without fucking over a lot of people. So I feel like it's realistic, you know?
If watching Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk has shown me anything, it's that when we get space, people are going to die and be poor.
and more, even more so, they're going to be characterized as a wretched hive of scum and villainy, when really they're just people who are like misfortunate and who need a little assistance. Maybe.
I'm glad that wasn't the only one that had that line stick out to them. I was kind of like, "Fuck you, Obi-Wan!" Like, what the hell?
I love that line.
I imagine someone overheard him from the background and was just like, "Dick." Okay, so we meet Chewbacca and Han Solo in this scene, and Steven, you watched the version where Han shot first, correct?
Yes.
And did that feel right? Did it feel good?
Yeah, absolutely. It makes no sense. Because then there's no danger if this guy can't shoot a guy across the table. It's like, oh, this guy was never in danger. This Mr. Magoo ass.
Well, my biggest problem, like, yes, it's a key part of Han Solo's character that he would just shoot a guy, like, yeah, fuck you, I don't care. But it also, like, how bad is Greedo's aim is, like, my issue with, like, the version Noah and I watch, because they're across the table, and he shoots and hits, like, there. And I'm like, dude, he's less than 3 feet away. What is your problem?
Yeah.
Han Solo has Han Solo-like reflexes, obviously. So he anticipated the shot coming. You can even see, at least in the Disney Plus version, he does a little head move. And
they keyframed his body. Like, no.
yeah, it's 100% like.
And they were like, yes, this makes the story. This is Star Wars, which in hindsight with the franchise, yeah, it is. But I've done enough of the storytelling. Steven, take it narratively from here.
Narratively from here, they get on Han Solo's ship. They barter, and he's like, "Oh, you got a lot of money. We'll do it." And then, well, that's before Greedo comes. So they get on the ship, and then the guys come, and they're like, "Did that guy cut that guy's arm off? And let's chase them. Maybe they are the droids we were looking for." Also, when he does the Jedi mind trick thing, Luke also completely fine, like not impressed that he just brainwashed a bunch of people. But anyways, they get on the ship.
So let's just go ahead and jump ahead to where on the Death Star, because that's the next really interesting thing. They get captured by the Death Star because they're on the way to the planet that the Death Star just blew up, and Darth Vader made Admiral Tarkin made Princess Leia watch her home planet blow up, which Princess Leia recovers from again fast.
She does, like, immediately. She's like, oh my god, you just killed billions of people.
No tears for Alderaan.
For all of the suspension of disbelief that maybe Star Wars makes you do, one, I think all three of us have seen this more than one time. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
So I think we're a little bit more attuned to it every time we watch it. And if you're watching something, again, like with a critical eye, you're bound to those things are sort of bound to stick out to you a little bit more than maybe they would just watching for pleasure. But I think that one of the things that we're neglecting, or maybe like looking over when we're talking about sort of the over convenientness of some of these things, is that like for a 2-hour long movie, for a movie that's like, you know, a little bit over 2 hours, the pacing in it is fantastic. Like, yeah, they do figure out pretty easily that Princess Leia is on board and there's all this stuff that happens, but it is like they do it in an exciting manner. And there's never a moment where I'm like, okay, that plot device was just a little bit too like, it never takes me out of the scene. Does that make sense? Yeah, so I don't know. I think it is convenient, but it does narratively move the story along and without it seeming like out of place.
Yeah, one thing I didn't even like realize though too with that, when the message comes in from Princess Leia, she's like, "Help me, you're my only hope." But it's not about her being rescued. It's about getting these plans out. And then they kind of end up surprisingly like rescuing her, and like she's never like, why did you bring the plans back? Like, it's like, I sent them to you.
Obi-Wan, what the fuck?
One thing that I have always disliked was the trash monster. I don't understand that, and I had to look it up because it doesn't make sense to live in a trash compactor.
It's decomposing of the future. Is that what it's called? Decomposing?
But the like, I think I was on Wikipedia or a similar site, and it says that it's like it snuck on board and like has managed to live in the trash compactor. Like, I was like, but it's like that's why it like drops Luke, I guess, as it hears the bell and it's like, oh, I need to hide in my little crevice.
Right.
And I'm like, there's not a crevice in a trash compactor that would.
Maybe there's like a grate, you know, for except if there were, I don't know,
like liquid, maybe. But I'm also like, how did it sneak on? Like, did someone throw it away? And then, like,
I just love that they gave a tragic origin story to the
Steven,
trash monster.
It is it's a device that has to be discussed. I mean, it's a crucial part of the story. But I think what we're all neglecting to take into account here is that this is happening a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. There are things that we just can't understand, you guys. Maybe some things are living. I don't know how the trash monster snuck on board, but it did.
I'm just glad we're asking the important questions here today.
I think we're doing a really good job of reviewing Star Wars. I think
but we move on from there and we get one of the most iconic duels ever, because as they're fleeing back to the Millennium Falcon, a door opens and reveals to Luke, Han, and Leia that Obi-Wan is confronting Darth Vader. And it is such an iconic fight where old men touch tips. And that is pretty much the extent of it.
Okay, this might be a hot take. Steven, I would love to know your view on this, but I have always thought that scene was kind of anticlimactic, and I have watched some of the more recent Star Wars films recently where they get like the point that people actually love watching the lightsaber duels. Like that's a big draw of Star Wars films. And so the choreography has been upped, 100-fold. I was more impressed this time around watching the lightsaber battle between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader than I was expecting to be. I really did remember it just being kind of a couple like back and forth things. And yeah, it's not the greatest, but there's like more fight in it than I thought there was, or than I had from memory. So I was curious what your take on it was, Steven.
I think I was actually surprised as well, like, because I always think about like, I always remember it like not being a fight, like you said. But I was disappointed in how Obi-Wan like gave up, because it wasn't even that cool. Like he didn't like turn off his lightsaber. He just like kind of stood there like, so it wasn't even like that impactful that he was like, I'm giving this to you.
Right.
It's just like, oh, did he like fall asleep for a second? He's like distracted and gets sliced.
He was like,
And also another Luke moment is he just yells no after it's gone, but he's like also like he disappeared. You're not even like, you're like, oh my god, he killed him, and then instantly he's like, get on the ship, like in his head, and he's like, oh, I guess he's fine.
No, my favorite part of this is that Luke has like, so we see him basically neglect his family who raised him for the past 18 years and be like, all right, well, there's nothing for me here now. Guess I better leave. But then the old man who he has apparently never met before in his life and spent maybe 3 days with dies. And it is like the worst thing that has ever happened to him.
Luke mourns Obi-Wan more than Leia mourned Alderaan.
We will deal with your rebel friends soon enough.
What happens? So they're in the TIE fight. They escape. They beat the TIE fighters. They escape to the hidden rebel base, which is on Yavin 4, right? A moon of Yavin.
No idea what happened to Yavin 1 through 3.
I don't know. I think that
you could guess.
You think Alderaan was the first planet to get blown up? So Han, Luke, and Leia all escape to the moon of Yavin, where the sort of last act happens. They have the plans for the Death Star. I forget who, but one of the admirals gives a little presentation, a fantastic PowerPoint presentation on the fatal flaw of the Death Star.
It's genuinely a PowerPoint presentation. This guy just fucking had ready to go.
But there's no PowerPoint in 1977, Daniel, or a long time ago in a galaxy. This is like cutting edge technology.
Fair.
All of the pilots complain about how impossible it would be. Luke says it's no worse than hitting womp rats back at home. And then they get into their X-Wings, their super cool X-Wings, fly off and begin their assault on the Death Star, where we have Luke switching off his monitor to fire the torpedoes, the ion torpedoes.
Okay, so I get to talk about my favorite line delivery, even more so than...
I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
When Darth Vader is very intensely chasing Luke down the trench, and he's killed several people. It's oh my god, it's actually really affected me even this time watching it. I was like, this is such a well shot and edited. The miniatures are great. It's fantastic. And then right as he's about to swoop in, or he's about to take the final kill shot, Han Solo comes in and takes out one of the TIE fighters. And Darth Vader looks up, and he doesn't go, what? He goes, what? It is my favorite stupid little thing that he just sounds so blisteringly confused, and I can't even tell if it's really James Earl Jones or if they kept the original actor for that one really strange line delivery.
Have you not? What?
Okay, speaking of like different voices for Darth Vader, George Lucas wanted to get several different people in that role. I can't. There are a couple of like big actors. Orson Welles was one of them, but then he was like, no, that voice is too recognizable. People, we want Darth Vader to have his own like unique voice that people are not familiar with yet. So different people. So they got James Earl Jones, who just iconic, the perfect person that they could have put into that suit.
Yep. Well, he never put in the suit.
No,
it was
I know. Voice wise, they have David Prowse, and
Noah.
There is still footage, like B footage, of David Prowse giving the lines for Darth Vader. Holy shit! I'm so glad we got James Earl Jones.
I'm a member of the Imperial Senate on a diplomatic.
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take her away.
It is nothing against you, David Prowse. You do your fantastic physicality, but James Earl Jones is and always will be the voice of Darth Vader, and I'm sorry.
I do like that on the original Star Wars as well. You can see fingerprints all over Darth Vader's helmet. Like, it's quite visibly like marked with like the people who put it on him's hands, and they didn't bother to wipe it down. They just have like fingerprints on it.
I do like that he gets glossier as the films go on, that the helmet is like super clean.
If there's one thing you can canonically say about Darth Vader, he is a fashion icon.
No doubt.
But okay, getting back into the movie. No, unless you had something else to say there?
I want to talk about, at some point, I want to talk about the score. I want to talk about John Williams. As you all know, I am a huge slut for John Williams. My 90-year-old, my other, love Jamie Lee Curtis, also love John Williams. I think I have an age thing.
So you want a threesome with John Williams and Jamie Lee Curtis?
Oh, yeah. Oh, big time.
So, the score of the movie, John Williams, I would say John Williams is, probably the most famous film composer ever. If you think of film composing, you probably think of John Williams scores first.
Yeah.
Would you say Star Wars is his best, Steven?
What else he do? Harry Potter or something?
He does.
He did Jaws, Indiana Jones.
Yes, Star Wars is probably the best one.
A stand-up comedian, you saying? I get it. I can see that.
No, what about you?
Yeah, undoubtedly. And at the risk of losing our fan base, I do want to get a little bit technical there for a moment. I love classical music, and so I think that's one of the reasons that John Williams really appeals to me, because he is heavily influenced by a lot of classical composers. And Star Wars really draws a lot. I'm sorry. I'm going in. This is my soapbox that I'm going to dive into for a second. But he draws a lot from a lot of like Germanic, like classical composers, and one of them is Wagner, who did the Ring trilogy. So if you've ever heard Flight of the Valkyries or anything like that, that is like, that's where that comes from. And if you listen to those soundtracks side by side, there's a lot of similarities to them. And Star Wars is often described as like a space opera. And the way that John Williams conducts his music is very operatic. And one of the things, I'm throwing this term out, it's called a leitmotif, which is basically, this is something that you see in a lot of movies, is establishing a melody that maps onto different characters or different scenes. So every time Luke is on the screen, or every time Darth Vader enters the scene, or you have like stormtroopers or something, you have the Imperial March, you have Luke's theme, you have Leia's theme, all these things that, so you start to associate sounds and feelings with like different characters. And John Williams does that, I mean, just better than anyone that I can personally think of. And I think that that is one of the reasons why not only does he hold up as one of the greatest composers of all time, but also one of the reasons why Star Wars keeps its spot on the AFI, but also why the score for that movie is so good, is he just nailed it. He knocked it out of the park.
Yeah. John Williams also did Jaws. Was that Jaws?
Yes.
John Williams. That's a motif. That's the same thing.
Yeah.
Where the character comes on the screen.
You nailed it.
Yeah. That's good.
I like Steven.
I like Steven too, quite a bit. So
Thank you. I like you guys too.
Okay.
Dear Diary.
Steven,
today.
Would you like to carry us through the ending of A New Hope, aka Star Wars?
Yeah, so then Luke puts his like 2 seeds into the thing. And he takes off his computer, and the technology of these things is like, oh, he turned his computer off. It's like, mind your business. How do you even know? They know whose computer's on. Anyways, and then he's like, what's wrong? And he's like, I'm cool in it. I'm just gonna feel it out.
I think that one of the only reasons that scene kind of works is because we see the other pilot using the computer and seeing it fail. Otherwise, I'm totally on board with you guys. I'd be like, no, use the computer. Like, that is what it's there for. It would be an impossible shot to make otherwise. But I also I want to talk about just Star Wars, but it is so interesting that I think one of the things that it also does well is setting up for future films, because we basically do not understand what the Force is. Like, it's feelings, it's things that surround you, and it's being able to deflect lasers with a blast shield on.
And now I'm going to add to our end questions here, and I'm going to ask Stephen, would you be a Jedi or a Sith?
I'd be a Jedi, I guess.
Okay.
A Jedi, but just don't bother me. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to go to church. Just I just want to be a guy with a lightsaber.
Okay. So there's like a Jedi who just works the archives, like that one whose job is just to like be the librarian. Is that basically the Jedi you want to be?
Like a maester, something like that? No. Books? Sorry, no disrespect to you, man. No books.
To be fair, I don't think they have actual pages anymore. I think it's like little blue hologram things that you somehow
it's
get
all digital
the
text.
Information from. Noah, Jedi or Sith?
Oh, hardcore Sith. I want Force lightning so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I want a red lights. Well, actually, that is my one drawback, is that the Jedi do seem to have a lot more freedom of color choice, like a wider color palette when choosing their lightsabers. Could I be a Sith with like a purple or a yellow lightsaber?
I don't. I'm sure someone in the comments is going to let you know why you can't.
Okay.
But I say yes.
You can do whatever you like with that, I think.
Cool. Then
I would like one that changes color when you hit stuff, so it goes from like blue to red, and that way every time I kill someone, they're like, you're actually bad. And I'm like, I am.
But I don't want to like fall victim to the rule of 2. As we all know, there can only ever be 2 Sith Lords at a time, and I don't really want to get murdered by my apprentice.
That's true. That's true. So now we must ask the question that I never really thought about for this one. Should Star Wars be remade? I would say no, because it's just continuing to be expounded upon now. Noah, do you agree?
Yeah, I don't really want it remade. As I think I've already said, there's something to that kind of 70s. There are campy elements of it that actually, weirdly enough, work really well. Mm-hmm. So I don't really want to see like an updated retelling of it.
Especially because they would cast Chris Pratt as Han Solo, and
Yeah.
I'd rather die.
Yikes.
Steven.
I would say no, but
Okay.
I think if there was like news that they were gonna remake it, and they were gonna like lean as heavily on the like practical effects, that would be no. I'm thinking about it. I was thinking about a different movie. I was thinking about The Last Starfighter. I think we should remake that one.
Ben, put in footage now.
What are you worried about, Greek? Theoretically, we should already be dead.
But now I need to ask you, do you think Star Wars is one of the 100 greatest American films of all time?
Yeah.
Noah, do you agree?
Yeah, obviously. If it were up to me, it would just be Star Wars at number one. You know, I want to ask Steven if he thinks it's at 13 right now, actually conveniently right above Psycho, which is what we did last week.
It's at 13?
Yeah, it's number 13 on the list.
Wow.
I think up 2 spots from the 1997 edition of the list.
That's incredible. Okay.
Steven, you think it should stay at 13 or be moved up or down lower?
I wanted to pull up the list. I think it should go higher. Like, I don't agree with some of these up top, but like, come on, Singing in the Rain, Stuck My Ass.
How dare you?
Suck my ass.
For the time, it's like, come on. But forever. Could it be, Gone with the Wind too? It's like the longest movie. Is it the greatest?
I think Gone with the Wind's a terrible movie, and I'm going to roast the shit out of it when we get to it.
Let's do it next week. No, I want people to continue to watch these.
Yeah, no one will watch Gone with the Wind.
Oh my god. My dog has not figured out how doors work, and so my door is a little bit ajar, but she doesn't know that she can just push the door open, and so her face is just like squeezed in the door frame a little bit.
Can you take your camera and show it real quick? Like your DSLR, just take your DSLR, and that way the Ben and the edit can see. And while Noah does that, I'll say it should stay in the AFI Top 100, but I put it at like 60.
I have no idea if that's working.
I hear the dog whining. It's so sad.
Oh, I'm going to let her in.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and... Wait, Noah, you said you'd bring it to like number 1, right?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and bring this episode to a close. If you'd like to follow Steven, who is a stand-up comedian here in the DC area, go ahead and check out these links that are on screen now. Ben, I'll go ahead and send you those in a jiffy. And, of course, like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you'd like to support what I do here. And have a good one, y'all. Peace.
Yeah, wait, like and subscribe.
Thanks for stopping by.
I'm going to go watch more Star Wars.